Today we examine the concept of ley lines within Trinity Crusade, looking at their mentions in the lore, speculating on what they are, and also examine some real-world examples to try and gain further insight. And then there is a short story by Thomas Pirinen, one of the creators of Trinity Crusade, and it's about someone joining the Mendalist order of monks that I'll bring you at the end. So welcome back to the Trenchers, and let's begin. There are two mentions of ley lines within the Trinity Crusade lore. First, with the Hunters of the Left-Handed Path, it says, they follow the hidden paths, the secret ley lines that connect the aeons-old shrines and ruins that still endure in the cancerous, tortured wilds of hell. And when no one can be persuaded to join the hunt of the court on earth, they can traverse the paths of no man's land just as easily as the wastes of hell. For the ley lines of hell are reflected upon the fallen creation. One of their in-game abilities is for them to cast a spell that lets them walk the path between hell and creation, allowing the demon, we'll call them, to move from one point of the battlefield to the next. First, what is a ley line? According to writewellcomesotwell.com, they are invisible energy currents passing through the earth in straight lines, which our early ancestors could detect and tap into by means of standing stones and sacred sites. The energy currents clearly are in hell too, with a similar concept behind them, and the ley lines of hell are also in creation. Now, whether this means the hunters can see the ley lines of earth, but they do not reflect the same paths of hell, or they both reflect each other is unclear. Perhaps the idea of hell being a reflection of creation, and that the inversion creation has its own power, could indicate that idea. Either way, the hunters can move between 2 points, walking the path between hell and creation, to slip from one part of no man's land to another. So my theory is that they can come to earth without the hell gate. They have been around longer than the fallen angels, and within the hellmouth of the North lore, we are told a reason it might appear in the north is this northern gate stands at a cross-section of ley lines where men fell prostrate before graven images in the dark days. So that supports the theory. Could the cross-section of ley lines have been the same where the city of Jerusalem was built? It would be a place associated with worship, so there might have been a cross-section there too, and that's where the barrier is weak and the Templars could open the door and open up the gates to hell to unleash the forces of the court of the seven-headed serpent. So let's draw out some real-world beliefs now. The idea that seems to best link with the lore so far is the idea of Earth having energy lines that move over its surface, creating a network between ancient monuments and important places. From there is a lot of real-world myth that has been tied into the concept of ley lines. We'll look at some of them now. So the first that I came across were the fairy paths. They're defined as routes which fairies use to avoid human contact. So that fits very well with the trench and the hunters moving unseen, as we saw in that spell example I gave earlier. Another tie-in is when you look at corpse trails, or corpse roads as they're also known, where it's thought that the spirits of the dead move along certain paths over the landscape, and that these can align with ley lines. So when building things, people would, because they believe in them, leave those paths free for the spirit to travel through. This specific type has its origin in medieval times. As populations grew, they were introduced to connect further out locations to the churches near-ish to them, so that the churches will have exclusive rights to the burial rights of those that are around. This was also up to the churches' fall in income and authority, and it's a way to get that going the other way. The downside was sometimes bodies would have to travel long distances and over difficult terrain. So the idea of those paths for the dead ties in quite well with the demons from hell coming over to our world. Without repeating myself much, we can see similar ideas in dragon paths, which tie to feng shui, which is a way to harmonize yourself with your surrounding natural environment. That energy that the lines in Trinity Crusade seem to tie into seems to be tied into faith. And could it be some track of faith, some way for the left-handed path to see it, like it sits in and builds up in some places, that then tie together because there's similar energy? Maybe even on earth can they see that belief? Even if it's the followers of the church, could it help them find relics if it's the hunters of the left-handed path? Or could it give them some sort of power to call on, drawing on the faith energy? With the lines being tied to those ghost trails, that also ties in with the line between life and death being thin at those places. It could also potentially affect the trench ghosts and the paths that they can follow if it ties into that lore that deeply. So that wraps up our coverage of the ley lines. I'll be honest with you, I didn't quite get the depth I wanted out of looking at the real world examples to really come up with some cool concepts for the Trench Crusade ley line ideas, but I've given you a few there, and perhaps we'll get more in the future and we can tie into that. So now the short story I mentioned is called Tonda's Story by Thomas Pirinen, is how I'm going to say it. So when I turned 16 and the monks of the Mendalist order came to see if any of us orphans wanted to kiss the book and take up arms, my hand was the first to shoot up. Dozens of us did the same. Most were ready to do anything to escape the monotony of the orphanage and get some better grub in their bellies. But I wanted something else, for I remembered how my Majka clawed her own eyes out after the black priestess's knife had sliced her face off and strung it on the branches of our sycamore tree. I wanted revenge. The black robes then tested all the volunteers, girls too. Anyone who responds to the chemical treatment could one day wear the machine armour. So the Mendalist brothers took our blood and our night pot soil. They let us breathe the holy smoke and see how quickly our faces turned green and how quickly we puked our guts out. They gave us serums and watched as our muscles twitched and how our veins would bulge, almost bursting out of our limbs. They tested us on numbers and letters too. Mind was as important for the soldiers of the Lord as the body, they said. An unlearned yokel cannot calculate the trajectory of a mortar or how many grains of black powder a grenade would need. And what good are they to the Duke then? So one by one they sent children back to the orphanage. Some were too tall, others too short, some were dumb as rocks. But most simply could not withstand the blessed chemicals or the holy smoke that gave them high fever. They would never survive what was to come. In the end, only Mirko, Annika and I were left, and they, the brothers that is, took us in a black armoured van with no windows and no insignia. The way to the monastery is long. We had to sleep in the van, and when we went out we had to wear blindfolds. They had to make sure we could not reveal the path to the fortress monastery. Can't reveal secret you don't know, they said. Can't argue with that. But they were not unkind. On the way they fed us great quantities of mutton, chicken and ham. Delicacies we only saw at Christmas, if at all. We had to grow, they said, so we could be strong as Samson. The next year was hard. We had a lot of growing to do. The holy chemicals only worked on a chosen few, the monks told us, so we were important to God. But not as important as our armour. Nigh impregnable, the dicastery of the service of church militants will go to almost any length to recover a suit if one of us falls in battle. This way, when one of us falls, the heavy mechanized infantry remains at full strength. That's why they train us beforehand. Each suit is a handcrafted masterpiece made of metal and orichalcum alloy. It can take a hail of bullets, hit some grenades, anything even the most devious heretic can throw at us. But altering a short ton worth of machine armour once the alloy has cooled down is almost impossible. Such is its strength and hardness that most smelters are powerless to shape the metal, so they shape us instead. It's cheaper and faster too. That's why they take us young. We are still malleable. We can be grown and moulded into the right shape. We can endure the drugs that alter the mind and the body. It hurts us too. My muscles grew so fast they stretched my skin, and bone ridge protruded from my brow through my skin. I grew so fast and so tall that the brothers had to break my legs, cut part of my bones out and re-mend them. So I would not be too tall for my lion-style machine armour. My legs still hurt to this day. Painful as it was still much easier than what happened to Annika. They had to saw off her right arm, take it completely away. Her bones did not take the blessed chemicals properly. Firing even a single shot of the heavy grenade launcher her armour carriers is more than the bones of even the strongest man can take without the Mendalist enhancements. So her right arm had to go and be replaced by one of the Jabarian creations, bought at great expense from the Saracens. She didn't even blink when they told her that. She's a strong one, that girl. So on that note, friends, I will leave you in this video. I've got the short story and the ley lines lore. I hope you enjoyed both. Let me know if you've got any comments on that. And if you like this video on the Trench Crusade, you might also like this one. And if you want a lot of Trench Crusade videos, I've got a playlist on the channel with all the ones I've made to date saved there.